A thoughtless neighbor accuses her new black neighbor of stealing from her home while she was away, but when the truth is revealed, she faces the consequences of her prejudice. David was a hard-working man dedicated to his family. After years of effort in his job as a maintenance technician for an electrical company, he received a promotion accompanied by a transfer to a new city. For him, this was another opportunity for professional growth and to provide a better future for his wife, Jennifer, and their two children, Richard and Karen. David always believed that hard work paid off and that honest labor was the foundation for a dignified life. Although Jennifer was apprehensive about the move, she quickly supported David's decision. For her, the most important thing was to be by her husband's side and provide stability for the children. Jennifer was a practical woman, always ready to adapt to new situations and do what was necessary for the good of the family. Richard, the oldest, was eager to meet new friends, while Karen was still trying to understand the change, curious about what awaited her in the new home and neighborhood. The new city had a different vibe, with wider streets and a calmer pace. The houses were beautiful and well kept, but the community seemed somewhat closed off. David and Jennifer, however, faced the change with optimism, determined to build new connections and create a welcoming environment for their children. They were ready to face the challenges, knowing it would take time before they truly felt at home. In the first few days, the family's priority was to organize the new house. David and Jennifer divided the tasks. He took care of assembling the furniture and handling the heavier items, while Jennifer arranged the kitchen and bedrooms to get everything in order. Richard and Karen helped as best they could, sometimes unboxing toys and other times exploring the corners of their new residence. Even amidst the chaos of boxes, the family worked hard to turn the place into a real home. With every piece of furniture in place and the first boxes emptied, the new space began to feel more familiar. Jennifer looked around and smiled at David, who returned her gaze with a nod. There was still a long way to go to adjust to the new neighborhood, but at that moment, the family felt a small yet important sense of belonging. Once they settled in, David and Jennifer knew the next step was to introduce themselves to the neighbors. They decided to start with the house next door, where, according to Jennifer, lived a middle-aged lady who always swept her sidewalk in the morning. Jennifer approached with Richard and Karen by her side, while David carried a small basket of fruit as a gift. When they reached the door, David rang the bell and waited a few seconds until a gray-haired woman with a friendly expression opened the door. "Hello. I'm David, and this is my wife, Jennifer," David said with a broad smile, trying to break any initial tension. "We just moved into the house next door. These are our kids, Richard and Karen. We wanted to introduce ourselves and bring something from us as a welcome gesture." "Oh, sure," the woman replied, appearing a bit surprised but soon smiling. "My name is Nancy. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the neighborhood." Jennifer handed the basket to Nancy, who accepted it with gratitude. "Thank you. It's always nice to meet new faces around here," Nancy said, looking warmly at the children. "So, do you like the new house?" Richard, always more talkative, quickly responded, "We're still unpacking, but there's a big backyard. And there's a tree to climb." Nancy chuckled lightly and remarked, "That's great. It's always nice to have a space to play. I hope you enjoy living here. The community is quiet, but it can be a bit reserved at times." After this friendly interaction, David and Jennifer decided to continue introducing themselves to other nearby houses. Their next stop was the home of a younger couple, Anthony and Donna, who opened the door with curious expressions. Once again, David made the introduction and offered a warm smile. "Good afternoon. We are David and Jennifer, your new neighbors from next door. Here's a small gift for you," he said, handing over another basket. Donna accepted the gift and said, "Wow, that's very kind of you. I'm Donna, and this is my husband, Anthony. Welcome. If you need anything, just let us know. We're happy to have you nearby," added Anthony. "We enjoy having barbecues now and then on the weekends. It would be great if you could come over sometime." We'd love to, Jennifer replied sincerely. It's always nice to meet new friends, especially in a place where everything is new to us. The following encounters, however, weren't as warm. When they arrived at Rebecca's house, a middle-aged white woman with a closed-off expression, David tried to maintain the same enthusiasm. Good afternoon, we are David and Jennifer, your new neighbors. We came to introduce ourselves and brought a small gift, he said, trying to keep a friendly tone. Rebecca opened the door only partially and looked at the couple with an air of distrust. Yeah, hi, she said dryly, making no effort to smile. I've seen you around, she added vaguely, almost as if she was irritated by the interruption. We hope we're not bothering you, Jennifer said, trying to soften the moment. We just wanted to introduce ourselves and start building ties with the neighbors. Sure, Rebecca replied, maintaining the same indifferent expression. Good luck with the new house. Then, without further ado, she slowly closed the door, leaving David and Jennifer standing there for a moment. Well, not everyone has the same way of welcoming, huh? David remarked with a light smile, trying to ease the situation. Let's give it time, Jennifer said, holding David's hand. Maybe things will improve with time. Despite this distant reception, David and Jennifer kept an optimistic stance, hoping that time could improve their relationship with the new neighborhood. Weeks later, as David and Jennifer were working to continue their routines and build a new life in the community, an unexpected event drastically changed the situation. One afternoon, when Rebecca returned from a short trip to visit relatives, she found her house broken into. Valuable items had been taken, and she was furious. Without a second thought and filled with indignation, Rebecca marched directly to David's house, banging on the door with force, her face overflowing with rage and distrust. When David opened the door, confused by the urgency, he was immediately surprised by Rebecca's shouts. You thief, she yelled, pointing her finger at him with hatred in her eyes. It was you. I knew these people would bring trouble here. Stunned, David stepped back and replied calmly, still not understanding what was going on. Rebecca, what are you talking about? Why are you calling me a thief? Don't play dumb. Rebecca shouted, her face red with anger. Are you going to keep pretending it wasn't you who robbed my house? I was gone for a few days, and when I come back, my house is all ransacked. This isn't a coincidence. It's your fault. David tried to maintain his composure, although he felt a knot of indignation growing in his throat. Rebecca, I know nothing about this, he said firmly. We have nothing to do with what happened at your house. We're an honest family. Jennifer, who heard the shouting from inside, ran to the door to understand the situation. What's going on here? She asked, trying to keep calm. Rebecca didn't even look at Jennifer. Her eyes remained fixed on David, filled with fury. What's happening is that you robbed my house. Who else could it be? You're new here, and suddenly I'm the only one whose house got broken into. This can't be a coincidence. Richard, curious about the commotion, appeared by his parents' side but received an even harsher look from Rebecca. And you, little delinquent, she yelled, pointing her finger at the boy. You must be involved too, right? I bet you were keeping an eye on my house the whole time. Richard, with wide eyes filled with fear, looked at his mother without knowing what to say. Jennifer hugged him, trying to protect him from Rebecca's venomous words. Rebecca, please, she said pleadingly, don't talk to my son like that. He's just a child and hasn't done anything to you. I won't tolerate thieves and people like you around here. Rebecca continued, growing more out of control. You all are criminals, and I want the police to take you away right now. David stepped forward, positioning himself protectively between Rebecca and his family. Rebecca, you're crossing the line, he said, keeping his voice firm. I know you're upset, but I won't allow you to insult my wife and my children like that. I demand respect, even if you're furious. Respect? Rebecca retorted, almost spitting the words. You don't deserve any respect. You came here to destroy our peace and steal what belongs to others. And now you want to pretend you don't know anything? Without paying any attention to David's plea for more respect, Rebecca quickly grabbed her phone and dialed the police, narrating the situation in an alarming manner. "Yes, that's right," she said on the phone, her voice trembling with rage. "I'm at the house of the suspects right now. They need to be detained immediately." As Rebecca spoke on the phone, other neighbors began to approach, drawn by the shouting. Nancy and Donna watched from a distance, with expressions of shock and curiosity. David and Jennifer, still standing at the door, tried to comfort Richard and Karen, who were starting to cry, frightened by Rebecca's hostile tone. A few minutes later, 2 police cars arrived on the scene, and the officers rushed to find Rebecca on the sidewalk, still agitated. "They're in there," she pointed, gesturing emphatically. "It's them, I'm sure. Search everything." The officers approached David, who remained calm, though visibly distressed by the injustice of the situation. "You can come in," he said to the officers. "We have nothing to hide." As the officers entered and began to search the house, neighbors gathered around, watching with expressions of surprise and murmured comments. Jennifer held Karen in her arms, trying to calm her, while David looked at the police with a mix of resignation and hope that the truth would soon be revealed. As the officers searched David's home, he and Jennifer stood in the living room, trying to console their frightened children. Richard, with a tense face and tears in his eyes, looked at his father and quietly asked, "Dad, why are they doing this to us?" David knelt to be at his son's level, placed his hand on his shoulder, and replied, "Don't worry, son. The truth will come out, and we will prove that we haven't done anything wrong." Rebecca, who was outside with her arms crossed, watched everything with a triumphant expression, as if she already had certainty of David's guilt. Neighbors like Nancy and Anthony observed the scene with anxious expressions, still unsure of what to think. Could it really be him? Donna whispered to Anthony, visibly uncomfortable with the situation. Meanwhile, one of the officers, noticing the security camera system installed in David's house, asked, "Sir, are these cameras working? They might have captured something relevant." David, with a glimmer of hope in his eyes, responded immediately, "Yes, they're working. We can check the recordings right now." The officer nodded in agreement. "Then let's take a look. It could be important to clarify things." David quickly accessed the system and started playing the footage. Jennifer and the children gathered around, as a tense silence spread through the room. The recordings showed the front of Rebecca's house during the time she was away. Suddenly, a young man, athletic-looking and wearing a low cap, appeared on screen. It was Jason, Rebecca's nephew, carrying a duffel bag and forcing the door to her house. Jennifer exclaimed in surprise, "It's him. He's taking her things." Richard looked at the screen, equally incredulous, and said, "I saw him the other day, but I didn't know he was a thief." The officer watched the video closely and nodded, affirming, "It's as clear as day. This is the real culprit." Rebecca, still at the door, was called by the officers to view the recordings. When she looked at the screen and saw her nephew carrying the stolen items, her face instantly paled. The air of superiority vanished, replaced by a mix of shock and shame. "This can't be true," she whispered, incredulous. "It's Jason. I didn't know." David, keeping calm, looked directly at Rebecca, but now his gaze was filled with deep disappointment. "See, Rebecca? From the beginning, you accused us without evidence. All we asked for was respect, and you only gave us prejudice." Rebecca, with her voice trembling, tried to justify herself, I didn't know it was him. I thought it was you because. The officer next to David intervened, now with a stern expression. "Ms. Rebecca, your actions were irresponsible and dangerous. Accusing someone unjustly is a very serious mistake, and in this case, it was done without any basis. You put an innocent family in a humiliating and painful situation. This cannot be overlooked." Rebecca, finally recognizing the weight of her actions, lowered her head in shame. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice quivering. "I never imagined it would be Jason. I thought." But the officer wouldn't let her finish her sentence. "It doesn't matter what you thought, ma'am. Your words and actions have consequences. Mr. David should indeed consider suing you for defamation and moral damages, since the public accusation you made was based on unfounded prejudices." David, hearing this, fell silent for a moment, reflecting. He then looked at Rebecca and said in a firm but non-angry voice, "I don't want to hurt anyone, not you, Rebecca. I just wanted you to know that we are honest people who don't deserve to be treated like this. I will think about what to do, but the most important thing for me is that my family is well and safe." Rebecca, now with tears in her eyes, stammered an apology. "Please, David, forgive me. I was blinded by fear and prejudice. I made a horrible mistake." Jennifer, who had been watching the scene beside David, decided to intervene. "Rebecca, it's not easy to forget what you put us through, especially with the kids here. But I believe we can all learn from this. Maybe this is an opportunity for the community to understand how harmful prejudice can be." The neighbors, who had been silent until then, began to murmur among themselves. Some approached David and Jennifer to express solidarity. "We're so sorry for all of this," Nancy said. "It's a shame you had to go through this." Anthony and Donna also joined the group, trying to offer support. "We didn't know what to think," Donna confessed. "But now we understand that we shouldn't judge anyone without evidence." The tension in the air slowly began to dissipate as David and Jennifer received support from some neighbors, and the promise that the truth would be known by all. At the end of the day, David and Jennifer returned inside their house, exhausted but relieved. "It was a tough day," David said as he hugged Jennifer. "But the truth came out, and that's what matters." "Yes," Jennifer agreed, holding David's hand. "We still have a long way to go to build trust here, but at least now things are clearer." Richard, still confused, asked, "Are we really going to sue Rebecca, Dad?" David smiled at his son and replied, "We'll think about it together, son. Sometimes, more than punishing, it's important for people to learn from their mistakes." And today, everyone learned a big lesson. The night was quiet but filled with thoughts and reflections for David and Jennifer. They knew that what they had faced was not just a misunderstanding, but a serious situation of prejudice and defamation. The next morning, David was sitting at the kitchen table, having coffee, when Jennifer approached, still looking tired from the recent events. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Sort of," David replied, looking into the bottom of his cup. "I've been thinking about everything that happened. This can't just end with an apology." Jennifer nodded, understanding the weight of the decision approaching. "You're right. This story can't just be forgotten. We need to do more, not just for ourselves, but to ensure this doesn't happen to others." David lifted his eyes and found Jennifer's determined gaze. "I think the best thing to do is sue Rebecca. It's not out of revenge, but to make it clear that these actions need consequences. What she did was unfair and painful, and it can't go unpunished." Richard and Karen, who were finishing their breakfast, overheard the conversation and grew curious. "Dad, does this mean we'll see Rebecca again?" Richard asked, still a bit apprehensive. "Maybe yes, son," David replied. "But don't worry. The most important thing is that justice is served and that she understands what she did wrong." That same day, David and Jennifer decided to seek a lawyer. They went to Alfredo's office, a well-recommended professional in town, to explain the case. When they arrived, Alfredo greeted them with a firm handshake and an attentive look. "Please, have a seat," he said, pointing to the chairs in his office. "Tell me everything that happened." David and Jennifer recounted every detail of the situation, from the move to the new neighborhood to the unjust accusation and the discovery of the real culprit. Alfredo listened attentively, taking notes and asking a few questions to clarify the most critical points. "It's a solid case of defamation and moral damage," Alfredo said after hearing everything. "I believe we have a good chance of success in court, but it's a process that might take a few months." "We understand," David replied. "We're willing to move forward as long as this shows everyone that attitudes like Rebecca's are unacceptable." The following months were filled with waiting, preparation, and preliminary hearings. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed with neighbors and curious onlookers following a case that had become a controversial topic in the community. David stood next to his lawyer while Rebecca sat in the defendant's seat, her face clearly showing remorse. During the trial, Alfredo presented security footage, witness testimonies from neighbors, and the lack of any evidence against David and his family. Rebecca's defense tried to argue that she had acted on impulse, with no real intention of harming David, but her words seemed weak against the overwhelming evidence. "Ms. Rebecca," the judge said in a stern tone after hearing all the arguments, "your conduct was irresponsible and extremely harmful. The prejudice that guided your actions is unacceptable, and your unfounded accusations caused significant damage to an innocent family. I am ruling in favor of David and his family." The judge continued, "Rebecca is sentenced to pay a significant compensation to David's family for the moral damages caused, in addition to completing 200 hours of community service. I hope this experience serves as a profound lesson about the consequences of prejudice and hasty judgments." Rebecca, now visibly shaken, merely nodded in acceptance. The public humiliation and sentence were a hard blow for her, but perhaps also a first step towards reflection and repentance. After the trial, David and Jennifer felt finally relieved, knowing that justice had been served. "We did what was right," David told Jennifer as they left the courthouse. "It wasn't easy, but now we have peace of mind." "Yes," Jennifer agreed, holding David's hand. "It was difficult, but necessary." Over time, the family managed to rebuild their image in the neighborhood. David was treated with respect again, and many neighbors who had doubts before now approached them with words of support and solidarity. Richard and Karen felt safer playing outside, knowing that their parents had fought for the truth. Rebecca, on the other hand, began to fulfill her community service, helping at a local community center. Her position in the community changed drastically, and many avoided her, still feeling the weight of her actions. However, some neighbors, like Nancy, began talking to her, trying to offer advice and opportunities for her to redeem herself. Time passed, and the open wound from the injustice began to heal, both for David's family and for the community. Rebecca tried, gradually, to regain the neighbors' trust, though she knew it would be a long and arduous process. But more importantly, she learned that prejudice blinds and hurts, and its consequences can be devastating not only for others but for herself. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.